particular sounds, but produce various babbling sounds randomly. Most children are several years old before they can voluntarily produce most of the vowel and consonant sounds in their language. We can conclude that speech acquisition is entirely a motor control process rather than a process that is abstract or mental.
Fabulous. What is our conclusion?
Speech acquisition is a motor control process rather than abstract.
Yeah, and you skipped over a big word when you read it back to me, which I don't mind that you do that when you read it to me, but just so you know, it entirely is a really strong word, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. I didn't really.
Entirely, speech acquisition is entirely a motor cross process. So it's only that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is our reasoning for that? Why are we saying that speech acquisition is a motor control process rather than a process that is abstract or mental?
Because babies do it, I guess, without realizing it.
Most children are several years old before they can voluntarily produce most of the vowels and consonant sounds of their speech.
I don't know. This one, was confusing to me.
Yeah, let's dive into it a little bit. So infants lack the motor ability required to voluntarily produce particular sounds. Okay, so they don't have the motor control ability that it takes to voluntarily produce particular sounds. So even if they wanted to make an A sound, like letter A, they can't because they don't have the motor ability. But
Okay.
they produce various babbling sounds randomly. So whenever they're like, ooh, like making all those sounds, they're not actually like learning the letter O, they're just making babbling sounds, right?
Yeah.
Most, what does most mean?
More than half.
So more than 50% of children are several years old before they can voluntarily produce more than 50% of the vowels and consonant sounds in their language.
Okay.
We can conclude that speech acquisition is entirely a motor control process rather than a process that is abstract or mental. How do we know just from all of this that the speech acquisition process is completely a motor control? Just that fact that the only reason they can't do it when they're little is because they don't have the motor ability it takes, and not an abstract or mental. Because if you ask me, I would think it would have to be both. I would think, like, isn't it a mental process and a motor ability process?
Right.
Like, aren't both of them required? All right, so what kind of question is this?
Necessary assumption.
All right, so what is our wording more likely to be strong or weak?
I would say
Mild.
weak.
Mild, yeah.
Okay.
Mild is the same as weak. Yep, mild wording. And what is our goal of a necessary assumption answer?
Without it, the conclusion is false.
Yes, it doesn't guarantee our conclusion, but it has to be, it's a piece that the puzzle needs.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what did you say for this one?
D.
C isn't cat.
D.
D isn't dog. All right. The initial babbling stage is the first stage of the speech acquisition process. Does that matter at all?
No. I
No.
really did not know it this one. um, I don't know because A. I don't know. Speech acquisition is a function only of one's ability.
Wait, do you know the right answer? Or are you still working through them?
Yeah, I know the right answer. I'm just trying to understand it.
Okay. So this assumption requires the idea that speech acquisition is a function only of one's ability to produce the sounds of spoken language. Well, that has to be true, that speech acquisition is only the motor control process, right? Because if not, how can we say that the acquisition only relies on the motor control process. Like, it doesn't take mental work.
Yeah.
So, and we say that the motor ability requires the voluntary to produce particular sounds. So this is the only thing that we're basing speech acquisition on, is the idea that they have the ability to produce a spoken language.
Okay.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
What if we said speech acquisition is not the only function, speech acquisition, speech acquisition is a function. What if we said speech acquisition has many functions that require it, or yeah. Speech acquisition has many elements to it. And this was the only one that we knew about. Would that work for this conclusion? No. Because you'd be like, what about all the other ones? So how do we know that speech acquisition is entirely a motor control process?
Yeah.
We can only say that if we're only basing it on the ability to produce the correct sounds.
Okay.
All right.
I got 8 wrong.